An emotionally available person allows emotions, their own and others. They make their own emotions available, and they allow the other person to make their emotions available without making them feel bad or wrong for doing so. Their emotions are acceptable as, this is what you're feeling. I may not get it, but I don't have to because they're not my feelings. They're yours, and you get to feel whatever you're feeling. Hi, I'm Barb Nangle. I want to welcome you to my podcast, Fragmented to Whole, Life Lessons from 12-Step Recovery. If you're tired of feeling fragmented and overwhelmed, this podcast is your guide to creating a life of wholeness, authenticity, and healthy boundaries. I'm a woman in recovery who is also a boundaries coach and speaker. I share raw and honest insights from my own journey and the principles of 12-step recovery. Discover how to set boundaries without guilt or shame, overcome people-pleasing tendencies, manage your emotions effectively, cultivate a stronger sense of self, and build healthier relationships. My approach is raw, honest, and sometimes a lot sweary. I'm an avid beachcomber and a formerly closeted fan of the Hallmark Channel, especially Christmas movies. I wear fingerless gloves almost all year round because my hands are always cold, and I love taking pictures of license plates with my initials BN on them. I don't speak for or endorse any particular 12-step program of recovery. Though I'm a huge fan of 12-step recovery and a member of two such fellowships, I cannot speak for them. If you're ready for real talk and practical tools for transformation, keep listening. This is episode 306, How to Unpack Emotional Unavailability, My Journey to Feeling My Feelings and Yours. One of my clients asked for specific examples of being emotionally available and being vulnerable. She said she feels like she is emotionally available, shows empathy and validates people, and listens and shows curiosity with others. So here's what I shared with her about my journey regarding emotional availability. It started with the realization that it wasn't just that emotionally unavailable men were attracted to me. I came to realize that I was also attracted to them. I did not realize that before recovery. Then I also came to understand that the reason we were attracted to each other wasn't just because they were emotionally unavailable. So was I. That was completely out of my awareness. And that makes total sense because a person who's emotionally unavailable isn't going to stay in a relationship with someone who is emotionally available and vice versa. So here's what my emotional unavailability looked like in no particular order. So I realized I was emotionally unavailable to myself. I was in such denial about my emotions. I was burying a lot of them, even though I was always a crier. Now, I would cry about whatever was happening in front of me, but I would cry in volumes that were out of proportion to what was going on. And it was like I had all these emotions from the past that I hadn't dealt with, but I didn't even understand that was going on. I really did not get what I was crying about. Now, this reminds me of a foundational piece of ACA literature, which is called The Solution. And in The Solution, it states, quote, when we release the burden of unexpressed grief, we slowly move out of the past, unquote. The unexpressed grief referred to here is the grief about the difference between what we could have had if we'd grown up in a nurturing, healthy, loving, supportive family with no trauma, and what we actually got from our dysfunctional family. That is a vast difference for many of us. So the amount of grief can be enormous. Now, I've put a link in the show notes to another episode I did about The Solution, if you'd like to learn more about that. But anyway, as I did my recovery work and became clear about what happened in my early life, I was able to grieve the difference between what I got and what I could have gotten if I'd grown up in a healthy, nurturing family. And eventually, I became not so much of a crier. I emptied the well of grief by knowing what the fuck I was crying about and feeling the feelings of grief so they were released and expressed. Now, when the solution says we release the burden of unexpressed grief, we slowly move out of the past. That means we're able to let go of many of our dysfunctional patterns from the past. Those are the burdens we release. We're able to face our feelings and what happened to us. And we're not trying to use all of these sideways ways of getting our needs met that we learned in the past and avoiding our feelings and blaming others for what they're doing in the present that we think is the thing that's upsetting us when it's really something from the past that's upsetting us. So we're able to step out of the dynamics we've been caught in most of our lives. So becoming emotionally available to myself meant really understanding what am I feeling? And for me, understanding that much of what I was feeling was about the past, not the current situation, though I blamed the current people, places, and things in my life for what I was feeling then. And then allowing myself to feel it and let it kind of go through me and then respond to what my feelings are telling me. For example, I would get resentful of people for asking me to help them all the time. Now, it would start with me offering to help someone, and then they'd keep asking me, and then they'd keep taking, and I would keep giving, and then I'd get resentful. Now, at the time, I thought that resentment was against them, but eventually I came to see that it was also against me for continuing to give when I didn't want to anymore, or for saying yes when I really wanted to say no. That resentment was an indicator for me. This is not okay with you, Barb. That's why you're resentful. But I was so emotionally unavailable to myself, I didn't realize any of that. I didn't know that the feeling of resentment was an indicator that I needed to change something. I thought I was justified in being pissed off and resentful of them for, quote, taking advantage of me, which, by the way, people cannot do. You give them the advantage. They don't take it from you. I learned to really pay attention to my own emotions. So if you think about the people I dated before recovery, when I didn't even know I was emotionally unavailable, I thought it was just them and didn't see the part where I wasn't just attracting them, I was also attracted to them. So it wasn't something that was happening to me. I was part of it. So when it came to the people that I dated, how could I possibly share what was really going on with me when I didn't even know? I basically gave them the responsibility for emotional availability in our relationship. I thought they're not being emotionally available to me, but I didn't see my role in that. And back then, them being emotionally available to me meant, well, anyway, to me, I want you to tell me what you're feeling about something. And also, just FYI, what I need is to be in agreement with what you're feeling. Because if you tell me I'm feeling bothered by XYZ, and then I think you shouldn't be bothered by that, then I try to talk you out of being bothered by something because I thought you shouldn't be bothered by that. An emotionally available person would never do that. Emotionally available people don't try to talk people out of what they think or feel. Emotionally available people don't ask a question and then get a response they don't like and defend against the response or try to talk the person out of that response or convince them that their feelings are wrong or that they're wrong. An emotionally available person allows emotions, their own and others. They make their own emotions available and they allow the other person to make their emotions available without making them feel bad or wrong for doing so. Their emotions are acceptable as, this is what you're feeling. I may not get it, but I don't have to because they're not my feelings. They're yours, and you get to feel whatever you're feeling. So I wasn't capable of being in the relationship emotionally with other people. And it really started with me not being capable of making my own emotions available. So there was some of the victim mentality in there, which was it's them, not me. This is happening to me by them. And that is a huge part of the problem with emotional unavailability. And then there was the fact that I didn't even know what my emotions were. The journey for me was understanding what the hell I was feeling, what was my role in the emotional landscape of the relationship, and becoming emotionally available to myself, which I'm still doing to this day. I'm so much more emotionally available than I ever was, but I suspect I'll be doing this for the rest of my life. I'm guessing that that's going to be that way, but I believe and I hope that the major mountains of that work are behind me. So I can now be in relationships with people who are capable of being in a conversation with me when one or both of us are upset. We don't make the other person bad or wrong. And if we're really upset, we know to take a break, cool off, ground ourselves, maybe reach out to our higher power, and then come back to the conversation because we know it's not the end. These are just feelings and they will pass. So maybe we say something like, this isn't the time for me to have this conversation because I'm really upset right now. I need to put a pin in this and come back later when I'm calm. Now, I almost never have to do that anymore because I'm able to maintain calm because I don't take things personally anymore. I think that's part of it too. When you're emotionally available to yourself, you realize I'm separate from you. These are my emotions and those are yours. So you get to have your emotions. You get to be upset. And I don't have to take it on as if it's my job or my responsibility to get you to stop being upset. My job is to help myself when I'm upset, not you. Now, if you ask me to help you and it feels appropriate and doable, I can choose to do that. But I don't need to stop you from having those feelings. They don't need to be fixed. You get to have them. Being emotionally available is about how you're showing up. It alters how you show up. I am so different in this relationship that I'm in now that stuff comes out of my mouth and I'm like, how did I even know to say that? It's astonishing, really. There are so many times in this relationship where something is happening and I think back to previous relationships where if this current situation happened, it would have gone completely in the other direction because of how I would have handled it in the past. I was super defensive. I took everything personally. I thought it was right about everything, but I was also not aware of any of that, which is bad because if you're like that and you know it, that's one thing, but I didn't know. I've dated people who have said to me, what you're saying, Barb, is it's either your way or the highway. And I was like, no, I'm not like that. But yes, I was. But I honestly didn't realize it at the time. So if you've just gotten out of a dysfunctional romantic relationship, you can use that as fodder to understand yourself, which will help you in your future relationships. Because you'll start to see in those new relationships, this is really different than that one was, and this is good. Or if it's the same in many ways, you realize this is the same and I don't want any more of that. So you get out. You decide, I'm not going to pursue this relationship. So I want to share an example of retroactively understanding a relationship. There was a guy I dated before recovery, and I had convinced myself that he was a nice guy. Not only did I experience him as a nice guy, but everybody that I met and all the people I introduced him to said, oh, he's such a nice guy. And it wasn't until I got in recovery and I started to think about some of the things he occasionally said to me. Now, it was only occasional, but he said some pretty hateful shit to me. And even just a few times matters when somebody that you care about says something really heinous to you. And it's really damaging. But when it happened, I thought, he's such a nice guy. So I made myself wrong in the situation and made him right because he's a nice guy. So I thought, okay, then I guess it's me. But then when I started telling the women in my 12-step group some of the shit he said to me, they were like, are you fucking kidding me? I would have punched him in the face if he said that to me. And I started to realize, oh, he actually wasn't that nice of a guy. And I started to see that even though I may have thought that what he said was fucked up and maybe even that he shouldn't have said it at the time, I still internalized it like what he said was true. I made it okay for him to say mean, nasty things to me because he's such a nice guy. Now, I would never do that now. I would never make myself at fault if someone said something hateful to me because I emotionally support myself now. I am loving to myself. I don't throw myself under the bus anymore because I'm emotionally available to myself now, which means I can also be emotionally available to others. No more self-abandonment. My ideal clients are professional women who say yes when they really want to say no and who neglect themselves because they're so focused on others. What I've found is that most professional women feel overwhelmed. You keep giving in to others and take on too much. You're afraid of disappointing others or being seen as selfish, so you don't say no. When you even think of setting boundaries, you get flooded with guilt and shame. The reality is that things will never improve until you stop putting everyone else first. To get the life and relationships you want, you have to stop ignoring yourself and start focusing internally. If this sounds like you, please sign up for a free 30-minute Better Boundaries call with me at barbchat.net. If you like this podcast, and I'm guessing you did because you're still listening, you will also love my weekly newsletter, Friday Fragments, which has short essays similar to the podcast. You can check it out at fridayfragments.news. That's fridayfragments.news. If you haven't already subscribed to my podcast on your favorite podcast outlet, please do that. It helps carry the message to more people. I started this podcast because there was so much wisdom in recovery that just wasn't making its way out into the world. So I want as many people as possible to hear it. I'd also love it if you'd leave a 5-star rating or a review, which you can do on Apple Podcasts. It helps other people find it so they can get the benefits that you've gotten from listening. If someone in particular came to mind when you listen to this episode, please share it with them. And my favorite place to hang out on social media is Instagram. I'm at Higher Power Coaching. Please DM me there. I'd love to hear what you got from this episode. I run private and group coaching programs on building healthy boundaries. Whether you need help with boundaries in your personal, professional, or romantic life, I can help. Head on over to barbchat.net where you can get on my calendar for a free 30-minute Better Boundaries consultation. I also do short-term situational coaching to help people make it through specific situations they're going through, such as divorce, empty nesting, preparing for retirement, or any phase where their identity is shifting. Regardless of the type of coaching, my ideal client is someone who is ripe for change. If that's you, I'd love to work with you. My goal with all my work is to help you make lasting changes in your life, like I've made deep, lasting changes in my life. Remember, it's never too late to recover. No one is beyond hope, and healing is possible. Thanks for listening.